Sustainability leaders will be part of that. They will have a seat at the table, their voice will be heard, and they will have a mature adult to adult conversation with the other people around the table, because we have agreed what our purpose is as a team, what we're all here for, and what our common goal is. As long as the common goal has been agreed on, then the conflict that will exist in the group will be because we have different viewpoints, different ways of doing things. And that's how then we get to a better solution than we would have had otherwise.
Welcome to Sustainability Transformations podcast, where we explore bold ideas to drive positive change for people, the community, and business. And today, I'm so pleased we have Bianca Riemer, who is a former top-ranked Morgan Stanley Analyst, who now works as a leadership coach. We're going to explore how the inner work of leadership is absolutely critical to the outer work of building sustainable, transformative organizations. Bianca, welcome. Your career pivot is remarkable, from thousands of conversations with skeptical investors at Morgan Stanley to now coaching leaders and the pranic healing. What was the fundamental disconnect or unsustainability you saw in the high-pressure financial world that prompted the profound shift in your own life?
Yes, Enoch, thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. So what was it that made me disconnect from that really exciting world, right, of working in the stock market and the intellectual curiosity and challenges in banking? And what happened was that I'd just come back from my second maternity leave, so I'd had 2 babies. And after I came back, I'd been out of the market for 9 months, and I was shocked. I realized that, oh my gosh, the pace and the motivation of people, it was just all about financial metrics and the way that people were talking to each other. You know, coming from the world of looking after my own children for 9 months and then coming back into the fast-paced world of investment banking, it just really hit my system, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Just the abruptness, the lack of kindness. So that then triggered a whole big thinking process in me. And my parents had just passed away as well. So I started thinking about the big regrets of the dying. So I researched that, and I was like, well, I don't really want my life to be just about making money. So my paradigm, the way that I looked at the world, fundamentally changed. And I started thinking about, what do I want my life to be all about? And it wasn't just going to be about just making money and working all the time and never seeing the people that I just brought to life. But it was a process. It wasn't an abrupt, oh, I'm leaving now, see you later. It was a whole big process that I engaged with. And I realized, my own parents had just died. I'd just given birth to new children. And I was caught up in this world of working really hard just to make money or to help investors make money, which was what, for the last 15 years, my life had been all about that, right? And I thought, no, there's more to life. And I remember sitting at my desk in Canary Wharf. They'd given me, after my maternity leave, they'd given me a window seat. I had everything that I wanted. My career was going really well. Rather than making lots of calls to people were calling me. So I was successful, and I had stock prices flashing at me, which is something that used to excite me. But I was looking out of the window and I saw a speedboat on the River Thames, which was right next to our office. And I thought, oh, well, I'm not actually interested in the stock market anymore. I want to be on that speedboat. So I was bored of making money. That's the true answer. I thought there's more to life. I want to be out in nature. I want to experience life. And I want to make this world a world that's worth living in for my children. So my children had never seen their own grandparents, because the grandparents died when my children were born. And I thought, gosh, my parents, they were working so hard just to make money. And my parents never been on a speedboat. And I'm like, I don't want to end up like that, just working hard, never seeing my children, never being on that speedboat. So eventually I went on the speedboat. It wasn't actually as exciting as I thought it would be. But what I do now is very exciting, because I have realized that there's so much more to life. I've experienced it. And I'm showing my children that there's so much more to life than just, investing and making money, and that it's okay to go out to nature, take a breath, and actually experience what the world is all about.
So yes, in your analyst role, you've exhibited critical thinking and influencing skeptics and so on. But how do you repurpose those hard skills into so-called softer work of developing leaders and energy healing, would you say?
Yes, that's a really good question, because most people I meet are telling me, hey, it's completely different what you do now. Because you used to be an accountant and it was all about analyzing, the numbers of a company. Now, as a leadership coach, you're working more with emotions, right? So it seems like it's a completely different end of the spectrum. But as you highlight, the critical thinking is actually still very, very important. And you have to think about, what is critical thinking really? So as a stock market analyst, yes, you analyze the numbers of a company to assess whether this company is going to make money. That's at a very detailed level, but you always have to see it in the big picture of the overall stock market. And are people actually going to be interested in investing in this company, given what's going on in the world as a whole, right? So the critical thinking, there's lots of different levels to it. And as a leadership coach now, it's exactly the same thing. So I will listen to the individual and I will listen to what is going on in their inner world and the problem that's right in front of them. But I will also draw their attention to their whole environment as a whole that they're operating in. So say, for example, once I was coaching a leader, she just taken over a department and it was her job to restructure that department. And she was telling me about what different people in the department do and whether the department really needed these people to do these roles. And I asked her, tell me, how does your department fit into the company as a whole? And that question triggered so much more thinking from her side, because she didn't actually have a clear picture of how her department fitted into the company as a whole, because her department was a marketing function for lots of different other parts of the business. But these other parts of the business each had their own marketing function as well. So it was about figuring out, what does her function do that the individual marketing functions of the other businesses can't do? And also, what's the new CEO going to want for the business as a whole and for her department? So the issue wasn't actually about thinking what individuals in her department do. The issue was to first of all find out, what does our company CEO, what's the new vision for our company? And then how do we all incorporate that in our different departments? And then once that's solved, what's my department? How does my department fit into the whole picture? Only then will I have the clarity I need to decide what the individuals in my department are going to do or not do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So the critical has different levels, whether it's just pure analytics or organizational redevelopment.
But the example you've given shares a good insight around not just looking at the individual's internal energy or personal transformation changes, because I am of the view as a sustainability coach that traditional leadership coaching tends to focus on the individual and the team. But how about the environment? Where are there gaps, or where do you think businesses or leadership coaching can help sustainability leaders or business leaders, so that if you have a business leader who's more aware, then it makes a sustainability leader's job easier, because they are not only looking at themselves as a CEO and the leadership team, but they will start to look at things so it's not too narrow of a wider view.
Traditional team coaching takes an inside-out view to team coaching. It looks at the individuals in the team and, hey, how can we work better together, right? What's flawed about that approach is that you don't consider the context in which the team operates. So the context in which the team operates is crucial, because you need to know what the external factors are that influencing the team. And one of them, of course, is the environment and sustainability. So that another one is the future, right? And the future generations of the planet Earth. You want to be able to consider all of your stakeholders and how your stakeholders interact with you when you start team coaching. And the first question I always tend to ask every team or team leader that I work with is, who does your team serve and what does your team do for them? How do you know that your team has done a good job? So it's a commissioning question. It's like, why does your team exist? What is your team here for? And you'd be surprised, Enock, how many people actually can't answer that question. They don't actually know why their team exists, who their team really serves, and how do they know whether they've done a good job or not. And that creates so much confusion, insecurity, and fear in people. And I think that's one of the root causes why business is so hard nowadays and why there's so much conflict that doesn't actually lead to anything. So imagine everybody in business knew exactly who they serve, why, how they know that they've done a good job. How much easier would it be to actually have a sustainable business over time and get everybody to work together, have the whole team, have the whole company rowing in the same direction? Resistance would be so much lower and people would actually be able to live happier lives, have more energy, more enthusiasm, and more satisfaction from their work life. So then the sustainability leaders will be part of that. They will have a seat at the table, their voice will be heard, and they will have a mature adult to adult conversation with the other people around the table, because we have agreed what our purpose is as a team, what we're all here for, and what our common goal is. As long as the common goal has been agreed on, then the conflict that will exist in the group will be because we have different viewpoints, different ways of doing things. And that's how then we get to a better solution than we would have had otherwise. The key is to agree on the common goal.
You talk about cultivating innovation and collaboration, which is so important. Collaboration within teams or collaboration with external parties or businesses to gain a competitive edge. But in sustainability, that collaboration can be a big challenge where if you have a sustainability leader, they don't have the control of other departmental heads and leaders, and so they have to collaborate. And sometimes you have the compensation structure, the incentive structure of the other leaders is not related to sustainability. So it makes that collaboration even hard, and innovation, which may overhaul existing processes or convincing stakeholders, or some might call even skeptical stakeholders. Why is a culture of innovation non-negotiable, would you say?
Yes. Wow. So there's two questions in what you just asked, right? There is, hey, I'm a sustainability leader, but the people I'm meant to influence, their incentives aren't aligned with what I'm being told to achieve. I think that's actually a really fundamental problem in business, is that people's individual incentives are not aligned with team incentives and often, essentially business incentives, if you think about it. And that's really something to influence the top team with, because if the top team hasn't set up the structure that is necessary for people to achieve their objectives, then that's like shooting myself into the foot. If I am a corporation, then of course I want to make sure that everything within me is aligned to achieve the objective. If I then give people different incentives that are in clear conflict with each other, I'm never going to achieve what I want to achieve. So as a sustainability leader, part of your responsibility is to make sure the top team aligns incentives so that everybody has got, departmental leaders have got an incentive to incorporate sustainability objectives into their business. They're incentivized in alignment with the incentive of the sustainability leader. And I have a very good example. When we first had a sustainability analyst in the company that I was working with, she tried to get everybody to contribute to her reports, but people had no time, and people also didn't see the point in her function. They said, oh, this is just a fad. This is a while ago. And what eventually helped her get collaboration from everybody is the head of the team saying, I expect you all to collaborate with this lady because this is a very important initiative. And he then made sure that whoever hadn't collaborated with her got a cut to their bonus. In the end, everybody collaborated with her because of the alignment of incentives that this individual had put through in the department.
Yeah. No, it's good.
So that hopefully that answers the first of your questions,
Absolutely.
which was, how do you get buy-in? And then your second question was, why is innovation even so important, right? So that is something, we're all stuck in firefighting mode. There's so much data bombarding us all the time. So we're just firefighting. We're just reacting to whatever hits us in the day. Right? I have leaders who telling me, the moment I open up my laptop in the morning, I stop breathing and my heart is pumping out of my chest because I don't know what's going to hit me. We're just stuck in fight or flight firefighting status. Now, whilst we're stuck in that status, we don't actually know what's going to hit us next year, next month, next year. And we're not adapting to the structural change in the world. And the world is changing so fast right now. And if we just look at the data, an average business life cycle of a business used to be 70 years. So when you and I were children in the 1980s, 1990s, the average business would last about 70 years. Nowadays, it's gone down to between 3 and 6 years.
Ooh.
So average business life cycles have reduced significantly. Why? Because there's so much innovation out there in the world. So if I'm not innovating, if I'm not looking at what's going to hit my business in the next 12 to 18 months, and I'm not, incorporating those trends in my business, then chances are very big that I won't even exist in business in the next 18 months. So having a culture of innovation means that everybody is responsible for innovation, because the trends can hit your business at any level. It can hit your business from the client side, from the supply side, or from within the business. There's so many external factors now that you need to consider. So your client rep that talks to the customers can actually give you some very interesting data that you then incorporate. The CEO is not going to see it, but the people who are working in the businesses on the business, they are going to see it. So unless you empower them to feed back the data to their bosses and up to the board won't even know what's really happening in the business. They will find it out in the newspaper after it's happened.
So you've written about reducing team conflict by up to 70%, but sustainability initiatives creates a lot of conflicts. For example, you have typical capitalism supporters who say it's all about short-term profit and analyzing your short-term cost. Sustainability leaders are saying, hey, let's make sure that the future generations are able to meet their needs as well as we meet our needs, so a bit long-term. And so it can be a shouting match between short-term cost and profitability and a long-term value. And even you have the sustainable businesses still have to be able to survive financially, meaning a short-term, as an example, or you have operations and sustainability goals as well. So I'm curious to know what framework you use for diagnosing whether a conflict can be destructive or an essential catalyst for innovative thinking that we just talked about.
Yes, I think it's really crucial to first of all agree where do we want to be in the next 18 months. So if you have, say, a 5-year sustainability goal, 5 years is a long time. We just talked about how the average business life cycle is now down to 3 to 6 years. So the first thing you want to do is have an agreement of where we want to be in 18 months. Okay. And obviously also an agreement of how we're going to review, how often are we going to agree our progress of, where we are, what's happened in the world, and an agreement of how much we're prepared to adapt our goal, our 18-month goal. Then you want to have an agreement of, how we going to get there. And that's where conflict can be a good thing. As long as we've agreed on the long-term goal or the 18-month goal of where we want to be in 18 months, and we're all in agreement with that, then we're going to bring in other voices that matter, voices that need to be at the table. So we need to have operations at the table and see, what do you think is achievable? And, what are your day-to-day obstacles or boulders that you need to deal with, so that we're all on the same team. We all want to achieve that 18-month goal, but then we're working on it as a team, as opposed to, hey, I'm on the sustainability team, and hey, I'm on the operations team, and oh, hey, I'm on the sales team. And we're all taking those different roles, and we're not in it together. We're separate from each other, and we're fighting each other, right? Because we're representing our function as opposed to being on the team that has agreed on the 18-month goal, and now we're working out how we're actually going to get there. So in short, the answer is we want to make sure we're all on the same team. We've all agreed on the goal, and now we're talking about how we're going to get there. The whole point of the conflict is that we want to make sure that we find the best solution to get to the 18-month goal. And what we have to get rid of, what we have to let go of, is our identity as the finance director or the operations person or the sustainability person. We're all, at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And one of the ways I advise sustainability leaders or businesses to be able to achieve that is you have businesses that will have their business strategy and they have an ESG strategy somewhere, and they're trying to bolt on that ESG strategy onto the business strategy. And I find that to be a common failure mode, where from the 18-month strategy, as you mentioned, build that one strategy and that sustainability is part of it. So it's not seen as an outside, which leads to my next question around burnout and energy, where there are sustainability leaders or business leaders who may be, okay, sustainability is not important. That's a different fight. But the difficult challenge is where we know sustainability is important, but that's a long-term goal. I have my short-term cost or finances, as I mentioned before, and that creates unhealthy burnout of energy, because it's like, the way I describe it is, you are on a treadmill and you are burning lots of energy, but you're not actually moving forward, which is good. I have nothing against being on a treadmill. But sustainability leaders may feel like, okay, I'm actually exhausting lots of energy here, but there is no moving from A to B. Whereas that creates that energy burning. So it comes back to the question of, how does the pranic healing method that you have concept involves the leader to assess and heal and re-energize the energy body? I've just given one example of the scenarios, but I'm just curious to know how you can talk us through to avoid those burnout and resistance to change and the healing and re-energizing.
Yes. So obviously your own energy is very, very important to be able to influence other people, lead other people, because energy is contagious. So if you've ever worked for somebody that you really enjoyed working for, it's probably because of their energy. You felt good. You felt like working when they were around. Whereas, if you work for somebody who's burned out, who's unsure about themselves, then that also affects your willingness to work and collaborate with that person. Because when somebody's unsure about themselves, they often have unrealistic expectations about themselves, and then that transmits to what they expect of others as well. So your question then is, how can I make sure that I look after my energy body? And what does that actually look like? Well, your energy body is the blueprint for your physical body and for your thoughts and emotions. So every time that you have a thought or you feel an emotion, a particle of energy is created in the field around you, your aura, your energy field. And an average adult has between 20 and 80,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot of thoughts. So that's the equivalent of writing several books. And those books, everything that you've ever seen, felt, tasted, touched, or thought, is basically written in a book, and it's stored in your personal library, which is also called your Akashic records. And we all have these vast, libraries that eventually affect how we see the world. So when you look out in the world, you're looking out of your own lens, like all of your experiences that you've had in your life and your interpretation of those experiences. And I've had very different experiences and interpretations of those experiences. That's why you and I, we have different viewpoints and different interpretations of whatever happens to us or whatever happens in the world. Right. And if I go back to the analogy of the library, we have these overcrowded libraries nowadays because we're bombarded with so much data from everywhere, right? From the internet, from phones, from advertising as we walk around in the world, and also from the thoughts and emotions of other people, because we're all interacting with each other. So what we do in pranic healing then is we're clearing out the library of all the unnecessary negative thoughts and emotions that we've had as a reaction to the events in our life. So as I'm then clearing out the library of a person with the pranic healing, the person, all the negative thoughts and emotions that the person has produced are like a thick fog around the person in their energy field. And it prevents them from seeing clearly, from thinking and seeing clearly. That's why we're also overwhelmed, because we have this fog of negative thoughts and emotions around us, our own negative thoughts and emotions and those of other people. In pranic healing, we're literally lifting that fog from the person. So as the person has those treatments or does the meditations, it's like the sun starts shining again in their energy field, because we've lifted the dark clouds. And the leader has more clarity, and the leader also has more ability to see the future and to feel positive about the future, because we have taken out all the negative thoughts and emotions. So if you then think about the most inspiring leaders that you would have encountered or experienced in your life is people who had a vision and who had the energy that you felt, yes, I believe in that and I feel good around that leader. I trust them. They seem to really believe their vision. In a way, you feel nurtured by the energy of that leader. If you think about any leader who's had a successful business or successful team, they would have had a positive vision of the future and they would have had the ability to nurture their team in a way that the team feels good about them and trusts them, that it's actually possible to achieve the vision.
Yeah, no, that's very good insight. No doubt what people say they want, and when you ask if they're expecting what they want, can be different. And so, yeah, it's good to know that you can actually sense that sense of belief in the vision that they are delivering. So based on your 10,000 plus conversation with skeptics, what are the one or two most effective tactics for building credibility or influence without having an absolute control to improve the collaboration that we talked about?
What characterizes a skeptical person is that they want to make their own decisions. What actually gives you a lot more credibility is to do exactly the opposite of what most people think they have to do to get credibility. Write them down. Give them the feeling that you're actually interested in what their objections are. Write them down. Because people love to be listened to by asking them lots of questions. And of course, you have an agenda. As a sustainability leader, you obviously have a certain agenda. So your agenda will come through in your questions, but it can't be too obvious because you want to give the person the impression that they're really making their own decisions, which of course they are. Where do you see your department in 5 years' time? How does your department have to look in 5 years' time in order to still be competitive in the environment that's going to be there in 5 years' time? So you're basically taking them through the same thinking process that you had as a sustainability expert to arrive at the conclusion that, this department needs to cut the carbon footprint by X%. And it's going to be more than one conversation. It's going to be a series of conversations because people's thinking changes slowly. And especially with skeptics, it will take you a long time to convince the skeptic or to help the skeptic make a more reasonable decision. So the main thing is to have a good relationship with them. So then the third tip I would give you before you even ever have a first conversation with a person, if possible, is to cultivate a positive attitude towards the other person. Don't see them as a finance person or as a salesperson or as an operations person. Because once you do that, all the negative stereotypes that you would have cultivated about a person like that in the past, we all have them, we may not be aware of them, come into play and they sabotage you during your conversation with that person. If you can see the other person just as an individual, another human being on planet Earth, hey, we're all in this boat together. We're all on planet Earth together. We're all part of the Earth. We're actually all in the same boat. Whatever I do affects everybody else on planet Earth. So we're feeling so powerless, but we're actually a lot more powerful. There's this saying, a butterfly may flap its wings on one side of the Earth, and it will cause a tidal wave on the other side of the Earth. So our thoughts and emotions influence other people around us, even though they may not be able to consciously see them, but unconsciously we all affect each other. It's like I let go of anything that the person may have done to me. And there's a pranic healing technique that's very, very powerful that helps you just clear your own emotions towards the other person. And once that's done, you're actually able, but once you're able to just clear your own emotions and resentment and stereotypes towards the other person, you can see and have a conversation with them eye to eye as just another human being that's on this planet Earth. We're on planet Earth together. How are we going to look after ourselves, essentially? Then it's also the other person will trust you a lot more because you've got nothing but positiveness towards the other person. So inevitably, the other person is going to reflect that back to you. And if that doesn't make sense at the moment, just think about last time you smiled at somebody. Did the other person smile back? Yes or no?
I heard it did.
Okay, so if you go into a meeting and you've got nothing but positive attitude towards the other person's also going to have a positive attitude towards you. It's a law of nature. So that's where it all starts. That is actually the fundamental lack that we have in business nowadays, is that we're all so scared. We have so much fear, and we have unconsciously, we may have some negative attitude towards whoever it is that we're meeting, and the conversation starts on the back foot. Whereas if we make the conscious effort every morning or before every meeting to just clear our emotions, see the other person as another soul on this planet Earth, then we've kind of built the foundation of the house of collaboration and of a positive collaboration.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for giving us those number of hints and tips, which all leads towards there's a few mindset shifts in our work, appreciation to begin generating momentum to overcome any internal resistance. So as we wrap this to a close, what is your final thought, Bianca, to the listeners that you wanted to take away from our conversation today, please?
Yeah, so if you want to build a culture of innovation and really get everybody on board with you, then the main inner work that you can do on yourself is to, cultivate what's called inner peace. So if you ask anybody on planet Earth what they want most, what most people want is peace on Earth, right? The main teaching from pranic healing is that you cannot have peace around you if you don't have peace within you. So we may feel as individuals, we may feel very disempowered around what all the terrible things that are happening around us on this planet. But everything that we think and feel affects everybody else. So we can all do our bit and try to cultivate what's called inner peace. And the one meditation that's really helped me get rid of a lot of anger, resentment that I used to have is it's called the meditation on twin hearts, or the twin hearts meditation. It's a very spiritual meditation. It's not linked to any one religion. It's something that everybody can do either on your own at home or in groups. It's practiced in over 160 countries over the world by hundreds of thousands of people, and people really notice their relationships improving, also their relationships improving. And as and when the Twin Hearts meditation enters corporate environments, you can see that the conflict levels go down. There's actually a study where they did it in Brazil in an area with very high crime rates, and a group of 7 or 8 people did it regularly, and over a period of a few months, the crime rate was very, very high initially, but it went almost to zero.
Wow.
So that's how cultivating positive thoughts and emotions within yourself with the help of the Twin Hearts meditation can really have an impact on the environment around you. Because at the end of the day, energy is contagious.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of positive energy within you, you affect everybody that you meet around you. And that's how then you can build a culture of innovation from the very foundation, which is your own energy.
That's good. Thank you so much, Bianca, for sharing these incredible insights around those collaboration, innovation mindsets. If listeners want to find more of your work, can you?
Yes, so there's my website, biancariemer.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to know more about pranic healing in your local area, you can just search Google pranic healing near me. There's Twin Hearts meditation groups all over the world and also online.
That's good. Thank you so much once again, Bianca.
Wonderful. Enock, I've enjoyed the conversation so much.
That's good.
Thank you very much for having me.
Same here. Yeah, thank you so much for coming as well.